the trip to Ohio.
Well,
Do I need to go? Would that be wrong?
you
need to come down
there.
Well, you could.
You can do that.
That'd be simpler. Otherwise, I'm going to mess this up.
Yeah. Might actually be.
And our video master will beat me.
Close to the mic too. Okay. How does this work?
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Okay. Well, David Hayes and I went to the Dayton conference held by the Agri-Treasurers in actually a suburb of Dayton that's called Englewood at the Dayton. Well, it's some hotel there.
You still call it the
Clarion, that's right. Clarion. It's the hotel itself is not in the greatest of shape, but the conference itself is terrific. A full day of speakers, wide range of topics. We had, let's see. Well, I didn't bring the program because I didn't think about the fact that I might be reporting that today. But every time I've gone, it's always been an excellent conference and a large variety of speakers, all of them interesting. And also, of course, dealer tables around the side. There are lots of goodies to find. It runs basically all day Saturday. There's a little gathering on Friday evening. But then the conference is primarily Saturday with a barbecue dinner to conclude it that evening. So it's well worth the drive. It's only about a 5-hour from here. And I've always enjoyed it.
Bill has spoken there, right? Bill, you presented there.
Bill has, and you did last year.
I did last year.
I didn't get to it this past year.
And it's run by, well, at least the person who MCs is Dan Andriaco.
Yeah.
Who is our Baker Street Journal editor these days. So, it's really a good. You always have 8 speakers, I think.
Yeah, there are
And,
8.
running through the day.
4 before lunch and 4 after. And then
Yep.
one of the presenters does a blog that's where he's actually going through the entire canon, dramatizing it with people from around the country, just sending in their recordings. He puts it all together, and he demonstrated how he assembles a recording digitally, and that was fascinating to watch. And then at one point, he and another guy did a little humorous run through of a variation on the old Abbott Costello routine of Who's on First, called The Adventure of Syntax. And it was all fun. So I had a great time. Also, I guess I should mention VoucherCon is going to be held in Nashville this end of this August, the last weekend of August. And a number of Sherlockians will be there, including Leslie Klinger and Otto Pinsler, Lindsay Fay, and I'm not sure if Stashower will be there. He might, I can't remember now, but there are a number. It's a long list. If you Google VoucherCon 2024, you can go to their site, and of course they've got one page where they're showing all the programming items and the authors who will be there, and also then there's a listing of various attendees. This is VoucherCon is the equivalent of the World Science Fiction Convention. It's for fans of mysteries, but very large attendance of writers, professional writers every time. It's usually held on the west or the east coast, different places. It's the first time it's ever been in Nashville. Next year, I gather, it will be in Louisiana and New Orleans. So that's another option too.
Would you circulate that by email? Would you?
Yeah.
Thank you. You're good at that. We appreciate it.
See that, I read it later.
Okay, I guess that covers.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the Dayton folks, we have a long history of folks in Dayton. Of course, they conference has also undergone a lot of changes over the years. And,
Yeah, that's last time.
And I'm just saying we have a long history of with Dayton, and they're certainly good friends. Is there any other reports or notice? Because I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to ask Jim to lead us in the creed and then introduce our speaker, and we'll get started. So, anything else, Brother Hawkins?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Would you please lead us?
I don't know where this came from. I've been here for a long time. We change it up every now and then, but you have a copy at your table. If you don't, it's on the screen up here. And those of you that are tuned in to join us along and come along and join us. First of all, Our story today is the three students. And our presenter is John E. Besser, Professor Besser. Don't call him Johnny. Don't call him Professor Besser. Will be fine.
That was Brad.
He teaches at Tennessee National State Community College. He teaches chemistry, and he and his wife have joined our church at Emmanuel Baptist. She sings in the choir. They move around every now and then to different venues, but they're just so talented. And I've asked John when he begins to tell us a little bit about his background. It's pretty fascinating, and about what he's doing.
Oh, good.
So now, if you will take your creed, we will. What is a three-pipe problem?
A dilemma that requires smoking three pipes to solve.
And I'll go ahead with it. Yes, in Red-Headed League, Dr. Watson asked Holmes what he planned to do to solve the problem. What was his reply? It is quite a three-pipe problem. Thank you. All right, we're there. That's who we are and what we're doing. John Besser, please. Thank you, sir. Professor.
Thank you for your kind welcome. As I'm relatively new, I think this is about my first year anniversary. So just as a reminder, my career was in manufacturing, and I was with the local company most of my career, Aladdin Industries. Thermos bottles, the famous Stanley thermosware, lunch boxes for children. We had a great relationship with the Disney company, both in Florida as well as in California. And then
There you go. Thank you.
I've retired about 4 or 5 times. So I retired from Aladdin Industries, and then the company that purchased them made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I worked with them for a while, and I was in charge of manufacturing and in Dallas. And one of the interesting things about that position was in one part of the plant, the assembly side, I had 250 employees. None of them spoke English, and I didn't speak Spanish. So it was a challenge. And then I got, as part of that position, I got to travel around the world quite a bit to Brazil and Germany, Belgium, and as well as the Far East and China. So a lot of great experience in that. After I left manufacturing in 2008, I joined the Williamson County Habitat for Humanity as the executive director. My wife and I had founded that organization in 1992, and I came back to lead it for about 5 years. And you might gather that that's a lifestyle. So 5 years after that, I retired from that. I am still involved with Habitat as a consultant. In the state of Tennessee, we have about 27 affiliates, which are all volunteer organizations. The other 15 or so affiliates have hard staff. So I work with all volunteer organizations, strategic planning, financial budgeting, getting new board members and so forth. So I do that. Right now, as Dr. Jim has said, I'm really enjoying and giving back chemistry. I say chemistry has been very good to me. So I teach chemistry at Nashville State Community College, Chem 1 and Chem 2. And most of those students at that campus are going into the medical profession in some way, mostly nursing or physician assistants. This semester, I've got 5 people who are going to medical school, and 2 of them have been accepted at Vanderbilt. So they are join in that in the fall. So I enjoy it. I won't tell Nashville State this, but I would do the teaching without getting paid because I enjoy it so much.
They're watching, you know.
Oh, they are? Oh, excuse me, Dr. Williams.
Just a second. Do you know a Rich Chris?
Yeah, Chris, he's going to do a poem for us later on.
Okay.
Hi, Rich.
He's not in yet, but he'll be there.
So,
It just proves that Sherlockians are the most interesting people. We often don't get to hear about what each of us does, you know, but we all come from other backgrounds and we've done.
Professor, I do have one question.
Sure.
It's not Sherlock, and it goes back to lab. Could you give me a Davy Crockett lunchbox?
oh,
Just a thought.
just it's all, but you know, lunchboxes are, there's a gentleman in Connecticut who collects and publishes every year the value of the lunchboxes. There is one lunchbox that has a round top. It's decorated like a Conestoga wagon. You know, remember that. If you have one that is in good shape, today it's worth about $12,000. Yes, and so Dr. Van West, who teaches over at Middle Tennessee State in historic preservation, he was letting his son use one of those every day. And this was several years ago. My wife, who had him as her doctoral director, I said, well, you got that in lunchbox, it's great shape. And he said, yeah, my son uses it every day. And I said, at the time it was worth about $6,000. I said, do you realize? We looked it up online. I said, it was $6,200.
That Van West,
And yeah.
Van West was a classmate of mine at Middle Tennessee State.
Oh, awesome.
State historian.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he has written the encyclopedia as well. So anyway, a lot of history. No problem. If I see one, I'll let you know where it is.
Yeah, I'm all about 12,000 for, I mean.
Yeah.
Well, did y'all ever do Sherlock Holmes lunchbox? I've never seen one.
A what?
Sherlock Holmes lunchbox, did Aladdin ever make one?
I'm trying to think. I was in the research and development department, so we had in charge of all of the archives. I think we did. I think we did have one. But it doesn't pop into my mind right away. I'd have to go look at some of my old notes. So just to finish up about me a little bit, hobbies that I have that involve chemistry, I do watercolor. I really enjoy watercoloring and that. I like to play golf. I like to garden. I like to read mysteries. No surprise there. Particularly set in English 1860s to 1890s. Guess who falls in that? Yeah, so I enjoy, I have read quite a bit, I think all of Agatha Christie, P.D. James, as well as others. And in that, I realized about 80% of all mystery writers are female.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing. If you start to
No
look,
mystery to that.
well, I say that since there's no lady, regarding the ladies visiting with us. But so you have to think about their minds. I never cross one because their mind thinks about how to get rid of you if you put them down. So all this history of mystery writers comes from somewhere, I think. So it's pretty well given here. So thank you for letting me share a little bit about my background.
What percent did you say?
I think it's about 80%.
80%.
Yes, I went back and read and tried to look at all of the names of the authors and if they were male or female, because there's a lot of pseudonyms, which took me some diving into. Some ladies don't want their friends to know that they write such gory details and some quite explicit. But I was amazed to find that fact out, that at that, but so be kind to our fair sex there, we will. So today, Jim asked me to do a presentation on the three students. If you could bring up the first slide, please.
Sure.
And maybe even the second slide.
Just a second.
So the first slide, just as a mention, it comes from the return of Sherlock Holmes. And there were 13 stories in there. Just go on to it.
Can you just?
Yeah. So it was interesting that in this 13 stories that are presented, the three students sort of stands out by itself. And if you've read those stories and the time that they come, it's the only one that I'm aware of it, and I think through it, that the crime was never fully committed. It was sort of stopped in midstream, if you will. So I struggled, I was telling Jim, I struggled about what to do about this. And so I have three students here in the jackets, and behind them is Professor Soames. So not really, I just tried to find a picture of three students. And this one came from a visit that I made out in the countryside of China. It was about a 2.5-hour drive from Shanghai. And we got there and there was students there learning injection molding techniques. And so anyway, I just wanted to have three students there. And so you can have a visual of the three students that we're going to be talking about. Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so what I wanted to just sort of underpinnings of the story, as I said, it's only the one of the very few that the crime is not committed. There are several where Sherlock stops the crime before it even gets anywhere. This is one, the crime is sort of committed, but is never completed. And so it's interesting, I think. It says in the very beginning, Conan Doyle here says, he presents this story as a way of focusing on the amazing skills. And so I want to try to focus on a little bit of that as we go on here. And this is one that Sherlock is interrupted. There aren't very many. I think there's only one or two others where someone comes to Sherlock while he's delved into some other activity. And here he is researching. And we really don't see and get an explanation of what he is researching. But he's 3 days into researching here when he's interrupted. And it even says he's in a foul mood when Soames comes in there. And I'm wondering, is he in a foul mood because he's researching and he's fed up with it? I can't see Sherlock sitting in the library for 8 hours. I mean, he's not the kind of guy, he's always moving. So I'm thinking he's very agitated by the fact that he's sitting in there, and it doesn't take a whole lot for Soames to convince him to go forward. And I said, you know, this I think should be kept in the back of our minds as we go into the story, because research and
Sorry.
academia sort of go hand in hand.
Do we know an Olivia Kirkendall?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
She's the head of the great alkali placement of Kansas City. Hi, Kirkendall.
Welcome to Kansas City.
Yeah.
One other thing that I think is an underpinning of this story is I think it builds on the character of Sherlock Holmes. He gets into the honesty. As we go through the story, he's about honesty. And I think also we see Bannister bring up here another trait, which is honor. And as you go through the story, you see that at the very end, Bannister reveals that he has talked to one of the students And, well, as you go forward. So I think many times we don't understand actually what makes Sherlock tick. And I think even to a greater degree, maybe it's Arthur Conan Doyle himself talking about the values of the time. If we think back at the time, honesty and honor, particularly family honor, was something that was very highly regarded. I mean, you could take family honor to the bank, really, at that time. And I think if we look at that, and this could be maybe a thesis that Arthur Conan Doyle is trying to bring about, talking about honor and honesty. I didn't think about it until early this morning about where was ACD in his life and how this honor and honesty could have played a factor into what was going on in his life. And he bringing this part into the stories that he tells. I know that this wasn't, it was written a while before it was actually published. So I think there's some things undertowing if we tried to think about what Arthur Conan Doyle was trying to say with the story. So
One more. Theodore,
Theodore.
that's all I got. Do we know a Theodore?
Nah, I don't know. Okay,
Thanks.
Theo.
Go ahead.
next one. Okay, so I know you've read the story, but let's just quickly review the storyline of the clues. So Soames is reviewing a test proof of a very highly regarded test. It involves a lot of money. So he goes to tea. I mean, I think that's a little bit strange. You've got something you're very highly guarding and you leave it on your desk to go to tea for an hour. I mean, I don't know. It seemed a little weird there.
It's a week. Very weak.
So he returns from tea and he sees his door open to his office. Papers are scattered on the floor. You know, he sees pencil shavings, a cut in his new tabletop, a black Philly piece of clay on the desk. Scandal, scandal, scandal. I think this relates back to the honor and honesty.
Scandal, scandal, scandal.
So he comes to Holmes because he
Yeah.
doesn't want the university to let this out in the public. If he goes to the local constable, the press is going to hear about it. He wants it. So it's all about honor of the college. So, sir, next one, please. So, you know, he meets with Sherlock Holmes, and after, as we said, Holmes is, I'm busy, I want to get rid of this research. You can just sort of tell he's way out of line. But reluctantly, he says, sure, go forward with it, but be quick about it. So what he says then, after he agrees, then Sherlock, these are his steps. He walks through the courtyard to get to the office and rooms of Professor Soames. He examines the floor. The first thing he says, y'all stay here, I want to see the floor, before he lets them in. He talks about which chair Bannister was sitting in. He asked, how long does it take to copy a page? I mean, what's that all about, you know? So I'm thinking about how he is beginning to think. Is there any hurried steps? Do you remember any hurried steps, you know, as you came in? What about the pencil shavings? Yes, and the cut. Oh, I have, it says the cut in the bedroom and then the copy, I just cut in the tabletop. So the next, please, if you will. So songs and reviews. Each of the students, the three students, the Indian, what's his name here? Adult Ross, I think, Ross, Gilchrist and Miles McLaren are the 3-1. Then he takes a walk outside. He looks back, he sees the upper floors, he sees the people walking, lights on. He asks to interview them. And what does he do? He gets to interview only 2 of the students. What does the third student do? Yeah, I don't care who you are. You can be the Queen of England. I don't care. I got a test tomorrow. I'm, go to blazing. And so then he surprisingly, I think that to some says, see you in the morning. I've got peas at 7:30 tonight. So I think it's interesting to me. And in a lot of the stories, food has some place in what directs Holmes into his next activities. It's amazing. I mean, I'm always accused of relating trips or any travel to the food I've experienced on that trip more than some of the other sites that I've seen. So anyway, so miscellaneous information that was gathered here that we might have overlooked. The potential of each student to actually do the deed. You recall, he says one of them is the most likely, but he's an okay guy anyway. The height of each student, hobbies and character of each student. And when you sort of those last 2 particularly, what's that got to do? What's that got to do with cheating? And I think that leads back to the underpinning of honesty and honor about the character. He talks about character, the word character specific. And then I think the pencil length and the pencil maker, that is fascinating. And then lastly, the interview techniques. Please. So before I go into the next morning's reveal, most of you probably know the scientific method, right?
Yeah.
Observation, hypothesis, test, reveal the results, and then communication of the results. Then you can, if you get to communication and you didn't get the results that you wanted, you go back and do the cycle again. So I think before the scientific method was known as the scientific method, Arthur kind of knew because Sherlock uses this in such a very quick process that you almost don't even see. And so what I wanted to focus on here is how Sherlock Holmes thought. How was he thinking as he was walking through this? And so we go to the next morning, and I want to start with what led Sherlock to start with Bannister. What led that? So how did he think? Did he not believe Bannister on his story of leaving the key in the door and forgetting about it? And why did Bannister choose the chair that he chose if he was so flustered by the thought? if we visualize the room, we see that the chair that Bannister chose was chosen for two reasons, really. The first reason is he wanted to hide something from Soames.
So we sat down.
So he sat in that chair to hide it. And the second one was to see the entrance to the bedroom.
Oh, yeah.
Because he suspected that the perpetrator of the deed was still in the room. And he had an idea. No, more than an idea. He knew, Bannister knew the perpetrator because he sat on the evidence to show that. And so, to me, if we're thinking back, Sherlock was saying, why? His observation, why did he choose the chair? Something must have been on the chair. If it was on the chair, he knew who the owner was. And so from the very instance, Sherlock immediately, by using the scientific method, quickly, very quickly, got to the point that Bannister knew the perpetrator and was protecting him immediately. And that happened so fast. If you go back and read that section, it sort of glosses over it. Arthur Conan Doyle glosses over that fact that Bannister already knew who the evidence was. So keep that in mind as we go forward.
He
Yeah.
threw us a clue early on in the story, though, right? That Bannister had worked for another person, the father of one of these young men. Is that
Well, not at the beginning. That comes next,
Okay.
later on there. So then early in the morning there, when he comes back, he questions Bannister first. And he questions Bannister first because he knows that Bannister knows who it is. And so he gives him the opportunity to come forth. And here I go back to honesty, the underpinning, the honesty. Holmes has given him the opportunity to come forward and say, yeah, I know it. But what does Bannister do? There's nobody. I don't know what happened. There's nobody in the room. Twice, Sherlock Holmes gives him the opportunity. Are you sure? Don't you want to tell me?
Yeah.
Finally, he says, all right, I know you're lying. Go over there and sit in the chair. In the corner, right, exactly, right. And don't face the wall.
Put your
too.
nose to the wall.
Yes, exactly. So then he calls in the first student, Gilchrist. Why did he choose Gilchrist? Go back to when Holmes started the investigation. What's the very
Oh, he
first?
was tall.
Yes, but how did he know that?
He looked in the window.
He looked in the window, exactly.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, Sherlock is tiptoeing, and it says, I think he's a tall 6 foot, maybe.
6 foot at least.
Yeah. Yeah, and so he's tiptoeing, so he knows that if someone is not as tall as he is, at least, he couldn't see in the tall window, therefore he couldn't see the proofs, therefore he has no reason. Right, the reasoning here. So this is going through that process so quickly that I think that is the skill that Conan Doyle is showing of how Sherlock operates. And then, so the Gilchrist, so he chooses Gilchrist because Gilchrist is the taller of the three. One is 5'10", one's a little less than that. Gilchrist is, I think he says, lanky. He calls him lanky. He also knows that Gilchrist is an athlete. He plays soccer, he plays rugby, he's on the track and field. And therefore the clay, the black clay, if anybody's ever been around a track and field event, you know the pit where you do the high jump or the pole vault. It's always a mushy, sort of muddy thing, and it's filled with sawdust. It says to keep it, I forget now exactly what he says, it keeps it from getting hard, but it's really to hold the moisture so that it stays mushy, right? So it's not, so he knows that in his mind, he has chosen Gilchrist because he's tall. Because what he learned in the interview the night before. How did he interview? He went in, think about this, he went in and he immediately saw something that he wanted to sketch. And he asked then, oh, I don't have a pencil. Do you have a pencil I could use? And what did he find out from the pencil? It matched the shavings.
Yeah.
And how did he know the name Johann Farber? Remember, yeah, on the NN of the name. And that's always at the top. Think about your pencils today. Faber-Castell. Famous brand down here in Shelbyville, is it? Or, yeah, yeah. Excuse me, Shelbyville. Yeah. And so he immediately knows in his interview other information that leads to which one did it, right? He didn't concern himself with not interviewing the third student because he already knew in his mind who it was. And then so early the next morning, he gets up and he takes a stroll past the field and gets a sample. Exactly. So then the last thing here we want to talk about is when Gilchrist comes in. What's the first thing that happens? Gilchrist sits down and he sees Bannister. And what does Bannister do? I didn't tell him my daggone thing.
Hello.
Yes. And Sherlock Holmes, that's all he needs. You just nailed it. You just nailed it. And so I think it's going back to honesty and honor is Gilchrist says, I have a letter here that I wrote overnight before all of this happened, and you know who that I did it. I have a letter of resignation. And so how did he do that? What drove him to do that? It was afterwards where there's a short paragraph about Bannister talking to him about when he was a young child and he was working for his father who lost a huge fortune on the turf, which we would call horse racing.
Yeah.
Right, he lost his fortune. Yes, horse racing. And so he brings back to what I talked about is the underpinnings of the story of honesty and integrity. Yeah, and the family honor, even though you lost the fortune, there's still the family honor to carry forward. Right. Yeah, and so that's what I was trying, I think that's all the big points that I wanted to bring up. But I wanted to make sure that you at least read that and weren't counting on that. So we have a little quiz. If you would bring up the quiz, sir, next one. Okay.
Anybody need a pencil?
No, we'll just
Okay,
talk
just
through
do it.
this,
Okay.
yeah. What two facts determine the height of the potential cheater? Anybody want to volunteer? Two facts.
The window.
The window.
The window.
Looking.
And
Looking in the window.
Holmes' height, is that the other one?
No,
No?
Papers on the desk.
The ability to go through the window.
No. It was, I think, sort of obvious, but hidden in plain sight. It was the interview of Soames of the potential of each student. And what did he say? Gilchrist, a lanky guy. So he put lanky, and then he asked, compare each of the students. The other one, well, he's a short guy, less than my height. Gilchrist was lanky. And so the word lanky and Holmes's own knowledge of needing to be 6 foot or more to look in the window was the two things I think that determined in Sherlock Holmes's mind the height. And then what persuasion did Bannister use to get Gilchrist to withdraw?
Who was from?
Well, it was the family honor.
Oh,
The family honor. He goes back. You sat on my knee. Essentially, what he was saying is, you sat on my knee when you were young, and your father's honor, the family honor, so many years he talks about. So he used the family honor to not carry out the cheating of that. Which student did Sherlock not interview?
The short guy.
Yeah, the short guy, McLaren. Yeah, McLaren. And what did Bannister conceal by choosing the chair that he did? Gloves. Gloves. Yeah, it says gloves, but if you know the track and field, most track and field people wear gloves. Pole vaulting, help them move over. I've heard it is aerodynamics. And so I don't know. I'm not a track and
And
field.
the kind of phones they would have been using then are very different.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Well, and if it's a baton transfer.
yeah,
A relay.
that's right. That's another aspect. Okay. And then the last one, what or how did the leather top get damaged? Cleats. Awesome.
Yeah.
Spikes on the cleats. He never talks about it except one sentence. One sec when he is reliving for Gilchrist how he cheated. And he said he was thinking Soames was coming back through the courtyard, and he didn't. He came in the back way.
Yeah.
And so he heard him. He had to quickly gather his stuff. That's why the papers were on the floor. He picked up his cleats and drug it off the desk, and without his knowing it, get wrapped across the leather top. And because he looked at it, it's sharp, and it's those cleats sometimes on very sharp pointed, and not the cleats we have today.
Police had the clay on.
Yes,
Came
and
off.
that's the pyramid with the hole in the middle.
do they still use cleats in track? I guess they do.
They
I don't know.
do. They're not metal though.
They're,
They're not metal. They're plastic.
because as a kid, they were all, I was a shot putter. I didn't get cleat. I'd have probably stabbed myself in the leg, but the sprinters and the,
Yeah,
the people that were having to propel themselves, they did have spikes and they were shot.
yeah, they were metal. They were metal.
Oh, yeah.
So I
I was
think
never up for the Olympics. Thank you. I was short and stubby.
my conclusion is, I think this is a difficult story to talk about, because if I couldn't figure out what was going to be the focus here, how can we understand how this story fits into the overall Arthur Conan Doyle writing them?
And third, and this is not original to me, I don't claim it, I think Gavin Graham and some others came up with it, is that
Got rid of it.
Thucydides would be an unlikely subject for an advanced translation of Greek.
Yeah, I texted Jim Hawkins.
Every Greek, advanced Greek student, but but they've already translated two of these. And so even if it had, and
Thanks,
even if
Rachel.
it had been.
You mean they didn't know
Why
what's going
copy the
on?
whole part? Just copy the first sentence and the last.
Yeah, I didn't get a response. I just,
On all three shelves.
I
on all
texted him. I saw that he
four
was doing something.
It doesn't make much sense to do that, so. It's those
Excellent.
points.
Thank you. Yeah, excellent, yeah.
Is it safe to come out?
You pronounce that word, so.
Yeah,
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 but
Olivia, come
I
back.
don't appreciate it.
Hi.
I just read it and went, no, I wonder what that word sounds like.
It's Greek to me.
Yeah,
Oh.
exactly.
We do that with-
I set you off.
I tell you gotta
Well,
watch
I
out.
think
Somebody's
that-
gotta always
I
be
started
awake
off by
on
saying
the,
how difficult I
on the
found
Zoom
this,
part, because they're not
story,
paying attention to us.
To
Yep.
talk about.
So, do we
Because
have another
I
meeting of
thought
the
about,
Under
well,
Society?
Is the story really?
I called this meeting of
about
the
the
Under
different
Society to order.
colleges and their status among it? And I thought, when I read it a second and third time, I think, I keep
Oh, you missed,
hearing
you
and
missed
coming
the
back
really
about
fun part. There was
honor.
an idiot here with a
starts
picture,
off
which I will
by
not
and ends
describe.
by. It seems to me there's a larger underpinning here about it, and that's what I
Oh, guy,
wanted
I'm too old to be shocked.
So thank you.
Good
He
job.
had no idea that I was too old to be shocked.
Another part that's different from the others, Ronald Knox, who was a younger contemporary.
Disgusted here.
was credited with
You know,
starting
when I
the
first
whole
heard it, I just
process
assumed it was Steve
criticism
Mason.
of the stories as
Wait,
if
two
Knox
bombers?
was
Wait, has our
the writer
Facebook
of
page
the
been-
novel.
No, I
know
figured
about
the
the
same thing, but then I saw that he had a sound block.
thesis.
so
Yeah,
he couldn't have been
Steve's,
here.
Steve's
that
thing
the
wasn't
Holmes,
in green, so
return
then I
to Sherlock
was
Holmes
surprised.
was- following stories was not the same Holmes. That the one who went away.
I was testing out a
Yeah,
new
the
character
fall-
for a
the
show.
fall.
Yeah.
I thought I'd see.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You can look at the cartoons later.
So we
Yeah.
should tell him to go to your meeting next.
Traits here that are not found in the earlier
I'm just
stories.
impressed none of y'all could recognize
Of course,
my
it's
voice. I
Sherlock
must have really changed
But
it
he said,
really well.
this is not really the same man.
It was like your Muppets voice.
I'm concerned about
That might be it.
Well,
There's another participant,
Yes, sir.
I have a question for you,
NS3PP.
and I think I told this.
Sounds
story
dangerous.
one time, so some of these people already
Well, the
have.
BPP, that's actually the
Do you
people
know
running the
why there
meeting,
are
I
so
think, or
few
helping to
Oh,
run it.
okay.
Oh, Northville Scholars
That's
three-pipe
the
problem.
thing, John.
Yeah.
So few what?
Um,
Slave
Fill out
catchers.
those initials. It's the name of the group.
No, I not at the top
Okay.
of my head, I don't
The
know.
pencil factories and shovel went around and bought them up for that cedar.
You're
But
right.
thank you for being so
Okay.
aware.
Because it used to be made out
We
of red
appreciate
cedar,
that.
Yeah,
and they all came out of these slave catchers.
I mean,
I
I
didn't
thought
know
it was
that.
funny
That's,
too, and then I
quite
suddenly said, oh.
well, thank you for your attention and your question. I appreciate your time.
Sandy
Uh,
Wilson, Rich Kutunis, and Gail's gonna.
Okay, well, why don't, say Rich?
Yep, I'm here.
Sandy Cozen first.
Okay. Sandy, you have something for us? We get the
Yes,
volume
I
turned
do have
up?
a limerick for you, if that's what you're
One
looking
second.
for. Ready? Okay. The papers
Wow,
for
it's
the
gonna be a-
prize,
Hang on.
Fortescue.
Trying to get the.
Sandy,
Will we start over? The papers for the prize Fortescue were so easy to copy, 'tis true, but young Gilcroft was good. In the end, never would cheat and make dear old Bannister blue. The end.
Well done, Sandy. Mhm. Oh,
Okay. Did you not hear me the first time?
no, I heard you.
Okay,
Did everybody else hear Sandy?
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can hear you. But I lost the group is is on Jeff Stewart's little thing.
We're
You're,
having.
you're you're good now. Please go ahead.
You want me to go ahead again? Okay. The papers for the prize Fortescue were so easy to copy, 'tis true, but young Gilchrist was good. In the end, never would cheat and make dear old Bannister blue. The end.
That's what they get for us. You cost, gosh.
Rich, and the last time Rich was on a Zoom meeting, he was on a ship, on a cruise, and you kept bobbing up and down. So Rich, I hope you're solid ground today. There you go.
There he's bouncing.
Okay, can we bring him up, man?
Yep.
Okay, Rich, you got it, brother.
Okay, so I have a poem regarding the 3 students. The canon stories have been rated and ranked by Conan Doyle, Sherlockians, and the rest. In Watson's retelling of the adventures, this one's definitely not close to the best. A half chapter of Thucydides copied. That's all. There's no murder, no blackmail or ransom to pay, no vampire, snakebite, or secret society. No one's kidnapped or poisoned. There's no foul play. No Irenes or Violets, no ladies at all. No client climbs the 17 steps at Baker Street. No hasty rides on trains or hansom cabs. The weather's fine, not even a threat of fog or sleet. No hiding in the dark or an amputated thumb. No ladies found in coffins to heighten the suspense. No secret papers stolen or wrongs to avenge. There's not a single shooting done in self-defense. Let's peruse the story a little more closely. Somebody has eyeballed the tutor Solmes's test. Holmes's plan to study English charters was cut short so he could try what he does best. The 3 suspects were living on the floors above. However, we barely heard any of them speak. There's no interaction, few details about them. Admit it, their character development's weak. There's the Indian, inscrutable and quiet. There's rude Miles McLaren, who won't open his door. A guy named Gilchrist who doesn't have a first name. Why couldn't we have had just a little bit more? But the biggest flaw in Watson's storytelling is the question of why Holmes got involved. If he just remained back at the library, this is a case that still would have been solved. While Holmes spied a pencil and sawdust from a shoe, the butler correctly identified the examination cheat. The thief confessed and packed his bags to Rhodesia way before Holmes's investigation was complete. I thank you all for listening patiently. Hopefully you're convinced, and I think you'll agree, Watson's other stories are all so much better. Any way you read it, this one's all Greek to me.
Bravo, bravo.
For just a minute, I thought we were on CBS Sunday Morning News. So thank you very much.
Is Olivia, or is she still there? Arkandall?
One second.
Uh,
Yeah, she's still there.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, Olivia has asked me to speak to their Kansas City group next month, so it'll be May the 21st, and I just wanted to see you first. There you are. Hey.
Hi.
Yay.
Hi. My apologies for running late. And yes, we look forward to having you as our speaker at our May meeting on May 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. So hope to see you there.
Isn't Rich on your program tomorrow?
Yes, he is. Rich and Krishunas and Cadell. So for those of you who don't know, there's going to be another meeting of the new Great Alkali Plainsman tomorrow from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. Please, if you would like a link, email or PM me, and hopefully it will be free of Zoom bombers. That was an experience. But I look.
Right? You only meet virtually?
Yeah, that is correct. We are strictly a virtual only online society. So
John Shaw was a member of the Great Plainsman of Great alkali plains from the greater Kansas City years and years ago in the sixties, and so that's why she's asked me to talk about him. But nice to meet you, and we'll see you next month.
Yeah, I hope to see you next month as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now, we're, Mr. Stahl,
Yes, Gail?
would you have any, Gail, do you have something you'd like to share?
He does.
Yes.
Oh, here it is. Well, I could go along. I helped start this group in 1978, and I have had more fun knowing that we could do what we did together. And at that time, I was reading a lot about Sherlockiana, and I was kind of an expert of the types of stuff that was applicable in the 1870s or 1970s. But we have had a lot more fun, I thought. And you all took us to New York and Minnesota. I've been everywhere because of Sherlock Holmes, and that it broadened my life a lot. I didn't expect it to, and meeting people like what's his name, Hawkins. Oh boy, back in 1980s, that was a pleasure, and of course all of you guys, you know, you're all my favorites. But I must say that David drives me more than anybody else, and I appreciate that.
That makes it great.
This is Gail's last meeting.
Anyway, life has been good, and I know you're going to carry on quite well. You've gotten a lot more scholarly lately, and got people writing books and just doing great stuff. And I've had very much fun. And now I'd like to read to you a closing statement that explains it all very good. Here dwell together still two men of note who never lived and so can never die. How very near they seem, yet how remote. That age before the world was all right, but still the game's afoot for those with ears attuned to catch the distant view aloof. England is England yet, for all its fears. Only those things of the heart believe are true. A yellow fog swirls past the window pane. At night descends upon this fabled street. A lonely hansom passes to the rain. The ghostly gas lamp fails at 20 feet. Here does the world explode. Those two survive, and it is always 1895.
Gail, as we said last month, we'll say again, it's never the same without you, but we know you'll be with us in spirit and in present when you can. So good luck. We commend you to the folks up there. If they don't act right, you let me know, and I'll find you.
They're going to know all about you.
I bet. Next month, the story is the 5 orange pips. We do not have
The what?
the 5 orange pips.
Oh,
Next
I
month.
forgot about that one.
We do not have a leader. Is there anyone who would like to lead the conversation next month? And I know a professor would be hard to follow you, but we'll struggle along. Who would like to do the 5 orange pips? Volunteers? You know, I haven't done a story in a long time, so I am going to lead the 5 orange pips.
Yay!
So
Gladys Knight with the 5
So we will be meeting next month. Is there anything before we close? We are, well, thank you online. We are so glad you were with us today. We'll be back next month, and see you then. everybody, thank you all.